Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge and the almighty dollar. This is your golf guru bringing you my 2021 Honda Classic preview. I am going to break down the course, break down the skill ranks of guys that we need to look at. It's not as good as field we would hope for due to where the Honda Classic is now sandwiched in between a WGC. Of course, we just came off the Players. So that's a bit of a letdown, but there's still money to be made. Typically, the odds on the winners of the past few tournaments have been 30 to 1 plus. So there's definitely some money to be made there. And of course, we'll look at the GPP and one and done plays in my money pick show tomorrow. So give me a few minutes. Hopefully, I can put a few more dollars in your pocket. And first thing, let's go into the players. I think we need to talk about that a little bit, see if there's any guys that pop up that's going to be in this field that we want to look at. And let's get into this. Okay, so as you know, if you are new to the show, thank you for stopping by again. I much appreciate you spending a few minutes with me. If you are one of my regulars, thank you very much. And the first thing that we typically do is break down the fields, look at some stroke gain analysis, talk about my picks on full transparency. As probably a lot of guys in the industry, it was a rough week for, I'd say, the top players. So many of them missed the cut. But let's get all that. First thing, let's just talk about the guys who led the field in the stroke gain category area. So you had off the tee, funny enough, would have never guessed this, but CH3, Charles Howell, actually led the field gaining strokes off the tee, ended up with a T9, and for 6,600, he would have been a great play over 10x his value. You've got leading from, of course, in your first round leader, Sergio Garcia, who led on approach. Had over 8 strokes gain on approach. I knew Sergio's history here. I was just terrified of his putter, and just kind of, was not on him. I'll be straight up, and that was a mistake. So the old adage of there is horses for certain courses. This course is a TPC Sawgrass. It's very rare that guys keep producing here, but Sergio is definitely one of them. And it's funny enough, I found my old notes on like Friday for this, and I wanted them prior, but just could not find them. And finally digging around through the computer, located them. And it was funny. The first thing that stated in my notes was do not play GPP or do not heavily play GPP. Just pick your one and, your bets. And I did not remember that so much. I kind of remember it and definitely remembered it after Thursday. But long story short, in those notes too is Sergio, who still, I think they shot like 33 under on the par fives there. It's just a crazy record. I think the next was like Adam Scott or something like that. But just anything, Sergio owned the par fives, putting with the eyes closed, was making some putts. So, yeah, Sergio had a great showing, ended up with a T9 and also, over 10x his value. The leader and around the green, which, again, you're going to hear me say this a ton, was Dylan Fratelli. And, it's funny with Nylon Down, again, someone that I wasn't really on, even knowing that what he's done on some tough courses and some tough fields. If you look at the Masters and also hitting the long ball, a lot further than, he's found some hidden speed working with DeChambeau's coach. I believe that's Genghis or whatever his name is. But long story short, he led there. Led on approach, lost actually quite a bit on the putting, but, wasn't gaining off the tee. It was all on approach and around the green. So he must have chipped a few and did get to see a lot of his rounds. And then you had Brian Harman, who actually I threw an outright bet in to win. I think it was 40 to 1 on Saturday. I liked what I thought from the very onset. We talked about this with the Ryan Armours and the Moores and the Harmons, the RBC heritage guys that are just plotters would be a good course fit. That did not come to fruition, but still, if you had Brian Harman, way over 10x his value, almost 2x it, but he led you with gaining over 7 strokes on the field with putting. And then lastly, Justin Thomas, out of nowhere, barely makes the cut by, I think, I guess it would be 2 strokes to get in the field, and then just steamrolls the course on Saturday. It had a great round 4 and led the field tee to green and in total strokes gained. So, I actually faded Justin Thomas. It's kind of funny if you look at my fades. If you would have played by fades, it wouldn't have been too bad off. I faded him purely, of course. what was going on mentally going into this, and is stated multiple times if you saw any interviews, but also just his double miss off the tee was just making me a nervous wreck. But if you betted him outright, I believe he was like 20-1 on the odds. Was great value for him. And then also when he's salary below 10,000. So little lesson learned there from me. When you've got a top 3 ranked player in the world, no matter what you're seeing or what the noise going on, you got to take some risks. Now, I'm not saying I didn't have in any GPP lineups, but very minimal. And then we're going to talk about the positives, because the beginning of my weekend, and probably a lot of yours, was a rough go. Of course, you had Lee Westwood again, amazingly, and we'll talk a little about that. But showing up right again and just playing great. And then you had DeChambeau. So it was almost like the API, the Arnold Palmer Part 2, we got to watch over and over. But literally from my picks perspective, and then last things I'll highlight was Paul Casey and Taylor Gooch, who is in the Honda Classic, could be very live for this upcoming event. They both led the field in birdies. Eagles, of course, you had Sergio, who I think on Thursday, the first round, had 2 eagles on the par 5s. So if you had him in showdown, you were loving life. And then in bogeys led was, which was crazy, and Colin Morikawa. We'll talk a little bit about him too. All right, so let's move down the board. Sorry, I told you I was a moron. I faded Justin Thomas. Of course, he won the tournament, so there you go. Corey Connors was actually the best pick I had in my top 15 picks. Of course, loved what I saw from the API, and he really, man, did he have chances to win this thing on Sunday. He shot 6 under, but literally had 2 birdie putts from like 10 feet he missed. Again, just the putter, if he would have made a couple more of those putts, he had an eagle putt that ended up making birdie, but could have easily. He had just multiple opportunities on the back 9 to at least contend and get into a playoff or even win this thing. But no one wanted it. The only one that really went out and took it was Justin Thomas. I mean, DeChambeau, watched. I can't think what hole that was, but where he topped it off the tee, shot it in the woods, had to chip back through the woods. It was like watching me almost at times play golf. Shane Lowry got highlighted purely because he's in this field. And Shane, and I'll do more analysis on this, but Shane has done very well at the RBC Heritage, which is at Harbor Town, which is I think my number 1 comp course for this weekend. And he showed some real nice signs of life with the 8th. Was positive everywhere, gaining on approach, and that's the one key stroke indicator that I'll talk about when we get into the Honda that we're going to look at. Also gaining with the putter. I think he could be very live. I've already got some bets outright. He's one of them. Who else here do we want to talk about? Daniel Berger was my second best pick. Again, he's in the field. I think he's the number 1 odds, and I would have to guess between him and M will be the highest price. Pricing has not come out, but I will get into the field a little bit more once we jump into the Honda. Let's see. We already talked about Sergio. Charlie Hoffman. I think I don't know if I had him, but just to highlight, he over 10x'd, did great for me on Sunday, which I'll talk about. Abraham Answer, kind of a letdown. I mean, yeah, he had a T22. It was really, he's had some really good Sunday showings, but again, you can see the putter, which is his Achilles heel. I mean, the guy, elite from tee to green. Just we needed the putter to get hot. It did not happen. I already talked about Dylan. JT Poston was one of my picks, I believe, on my sleepers. Barely made the cut on the line, and then had a good weekend. And again, what he does, gain almost 4.5 strokes against the field putting, but approach was definitely not good. Just see anybody else there. Joaquin Neiman, Keegan Bradley, again, good tee to green. If I had to guess, let's see here from a putting perspective. So they both actually gained putting. Funny enough, Keegan Bradley struggled off the tee, losing 2 strokes. Lanto, again, just made the cut, dead even, but struggled around the green. But, everything else pretty solid. Now Morikawa, let's talk a little bit about Morikawa. So I said he led in bogeys. He also did great for me on Sunday. If you had him in some showdown stuff on Sunday, which I knew, going out, there's no way you can win the tournament. Excuse me. And the putter, so he had the Jekyll and Hyde putter. So he ended up losing 2 strokes total. But if I went through round analysis, it was like, did all right with the putter, lost crazy strokes with the putter. And then, Sunday, like I said, shot 6 under. It's 4 over going to the day, ended up 2 under for the tournament. Still was elite, ball tee to green, gaining almost 3 strokes, 3.5, 3 strokes. But it's that, the putter, and that's what made me crazy nervous. So he lost crazy strokes before, I believe that was a Genesis. Then he goes to the WGC, gains, I think, 4, 5, 6 strokes on the field with the putter. So you're like, wow, within 7 days, somehow you became an amazing putter. And then, in this event, just the putter just killed him. Adam Scott was a fade, and no shocker. I mean, the guy killed the par 3 17. I mean, I don't actually know if he birdied on Sunday, but he birdied the first 3 days, the island green on 17. But this was my biggest worry with him, was off the tee, the two-way miss. Same thing, which, Thomas was dealing with a little bit. Chris Kirk actually looked real good going in, and then just had a terrible Sunday. But it was solid, just losing crazy strokes. And typically on my showdowns, I look for the guys that are doing well tee to green, and if they're losing strokes putting, and he's not a terrible putter, you hope he would make that up and have a great showdown, but did not happen. DJ was one of my picks, and barely made the cut and just did nothing. And I think with DJ, I think he's in still a Masters hangover. He literally, I think I mentioned, I think on Tuesday before the tournament started, like from my understanding, went to Augusta. I believe he took his dad or some family, played some golf there. Like his mind, I just don't think has been anywhere but still just enjoying the win, which is fine. And he had that win over in Europe, right, where I think it was the Saudi International or whatever. And I think he shot 13 under, but said it was like his worst, putting he's ever had. And that putter is just still killing him. It's showing here that he gained 4 strokes putting, which I just have a hard time believing that. I didn't, like I said, I didn't watch a ton of DJ, watch some, but his approach, losing almost 4 strokes, but the putter's still been a factor. Jordan, hey, I'm still a believer. I did fade him, but he played great. I mean, he made the cut on the number, but had a great Saturday. His Sundays, if you look at his history, just been struggling on Sundays, either being very blah or shooting 3 over like this. But, tee to green, he's fine. What is shocking is around the green and the putters where he lost strokes. So that's pretty interesting. My guy, Terrell Hatton, man, I rode him for 3 tournaments in a row, and a guy, kind of glad he's not even in this field, so I don't have to even worry about him. I was just terrified to, after I think I picked him for the WGC workday, was one of my favorite picks. Didn't do anything there. And then, all these tournaments, because we're just getting out of this Florida swing, just ran together. So it was like WGC, then the API. I'm like, I'm always could be a week late. Nope, nothing there. And then, okay, well, I've already been this far. Might as well stick with him. One of these, all these courses set up for him, and he's a good putter on Bermuda, and he just hasn't been very lackluster on approach. Gary Woodland, I just have this highlight. He was a fade, and Gary, he he didn't make the cut, but this tournament upcoming, he had a very good showing last year, and we need guys that can hit the long iron. So you think like the Fleetwoods, Gary Woodland, even Doc Redman, guys that are really good, 200 plus or 175 out. So Gary might be someone we want to look at to see where he's priced. But showing good life, tee to green. The putter, which has always kind of hampered Gary when he won the U.S. Open, just had a crazy short game that weekend. Max Homa, I think, is finally just burnt out. Just missed the cut, but I think that guy just is frizzled, just frazzled. As in, like, I was riding him because of the hot form, and the guy's been playing great tee to green, but he's just tired and he's not in the field this week, so we don't have to worry about him. Victor, we're kind of thinking he'd make a nice comeback, but missed the cut barely. But again, just the approach, which is a little weird with Victor, that he lost there and around the green. That's not a shocker. And then probably the biggest shocker, I think, for everybody was Webb Simpson. We know that, this course, TPC Sawgrass, is very rare, but probably the best form out of anyone coming into this, between Sergio Garcia or maybe Adam Scott with their past history here is Webb Simpson. But if you looked at the current play against those guys, and this course, I think it's just tailor-made for Webb. And he came out 1 under and didn't look bad, and then shot the 3 over, literally just missed the cut. But That was out of everything shocking. And then, of course, I talked about Webb earlier in the year where I was kind of off him just because the two things that he does very well, hitting, of course, fairways and great approach shots, he did not do. And, the putter was he gained almost 2 strokes, but just not Webb like. Tringali had a rough week. He finally, kind of missed a cut and, not by a ton, but just missed. Finau, another shocker, the way his game has been. He just had a terrible Thursday, almost made it back. But yeah, ultimately just tee to green, struggled around the green. Russ Henley, man. I thought I touted him quite heavily. I thought he'd be the pick of the week. Did not make the cut, but he is in the field. And I always say, typically I'm 1 week off of these guys once in a while. So, and lost almost 3 strokes with the approach that's where he is typically gold. So, going to have to do some analysis on old Russ and see what's been going on with the approach. We got our Marty Laird also led the field in bogeys. Party Marty. And then my Neesmith, Norlander guys, elite, tee to green. I'm guessing I even looked, but had to lose. Yeah, 5 strokes putting. Norlander lost 2 strokes, lost 4. Norlander was just a disaster. So, at least Neesmith stayed a little bit true to form, still lost an approach. And then Burnsy, I think the Burns train is done. 9 over on the first day, 4 over. We were all hot to trot on him with the Genesis. He was just in great form. Thought he's going to go to Bermuda. Gets to Bermuda and has done nothing. They lost, a stroke and a half on the Bermuda green. So, then you had all the crazy withdrawals, right? I mean, of course, we knew about Justin Rose, who was a fade. No shocker. I said I was shocked that he kept his name in the field. I think he withdrew right in the morning, which, just sucked because it was early tee times. I didn't have any of Rose. I did have like one team that had Harris English. So that kind of blew that he withdrew, but whatever. That was, no big deal. I just wish both those guys would have drawn. If you're going to have any notion that you might withdraw, don't wait till the morning of. Don't tell me you're on the practice range and, you felt something. Of course, Danny Willett had COVID. We already knew about Brooks on the opposite knee, which I didn't know that was his opposite knee he hurt. And they're skeptic that he'll even make the Masters, so that's interesting. And then he had, of course, Kevin Na, who, lost his shit on the par 3. I get it, but those guys knew that they just resodded that par 17 green, the island green, the year before. They were told by everyone, the tournament director and all that hey, 17 is going to play different from a green perspective and how firm it's going to play than all the other holes. So I don't want to hear whining. And you got to hit multiple practice shots into that green and knew what was going on. But, Kevin Na went the flag. It was actually a good ball. Just you couldn't hold it. And, so he goes into water. And then, of course, I'm sure you saw the footage. Ends up, shooting an 8 on the hole. And funny enough, how he shot the 8, he had to chip it in. So you think, well, okay, it is what it is. Benoit Ann, when, came in there +1, and ended up leaving, I think, +11, like 10 strokes over. So, he didn't quit. So that just bothered me. I don't like to see guys that a bit throw a little tiny fit and like, well, I'm not going to make the cut. I'm out of here. You never know. I mean, yeah, the odds were you weren't, but, you get on a 6-7 under heater, which you can do at that course, which was shown. Yeah, that was just a little frustrating. And, of course, I had Kevin Na in a few teams. I don't think he was one of my picks, but, the course kind of does suit him. But Kevin Na, there you go. Wait till he gets back to Vegas. Okay, that's enough. I think we spent enough on this, and I just have a couple things else to talk about the players, and then we will get into the Honda Classic, why you are here. Okay, last thing is about the players. So I did on my picks. I also just threw this in because we were looking at, we knew we were going to have differentiation. Funny enough, wasn't so much you needed differentiation. You just needed to pick a lot of guys that were in the $6,000 range and forget about the guys at the top when it all flushed out. And that's funny enough, you think we'd learn year after year. That's just typical for the players. But it's awful hard to pass up all those guys up at top. The Rorys and the Finaus and, even DJ and Rahm, as far as I'm concerned, he didn't perform. I mean, you go through it, except for Justin Thomas, pretty much the rest of it was just a joke. But I had this because of ownership projection at the time I did this, which was on a Wednesday. All these guys were in the field at the time. They were all very loan owned, in which, some of them made total sense. But like Mark Leishman, he missed a cut by just a stroke. but who knows? So did Justin Thomas pretty much this weekend. Of course, Ricky, did what Ricky did. He didn't come close. But you had English and Rose withdraw. But the big thing I'm pulling out is that at the time when I did this, and I believe, I don't know what his total ownership was in GPP off the top of my head, but he was less than, I think, 4% owned on Wednesday. And I said coming out, yes, I put him as a risk just purely because of his ownership, but stated I didn't think he was a risk. I mean, the guy is coming off amazing form on a very great comp course. And so, for 7,800, if you put him in, and I had him in a couple, but even I didn't go too heavy on him. But long story short, Lee Westwood, is in the field and should be very live. And this will be the time where everybody jumps on him, and he'll probably miss the cut. But for the Honda, so as I mentioned, it was not a good Thursday, Friday, Saturday on any front, on showdowns, on my GPP. But I kept working at it and had a nice finishing ending. So this was the showdown finale, the 100K, and ended up taking third place. And I said I don't typically share unless it's something to talk about. And this is, I think, something to talk about just so you guys see. Everything was doom and gloom. And then I put 10 lineups in, so I didn't max, entry 150 lineups into this thing. It was almost 20,600 people, so almost 21,000 people entries into this thing. So to put 10 lineups in, and all I'm going to say about this is, I looked at the field and knew, Westwood and DeChambeau were the top. I knew the one person that could come back, in which a lot of people you see was 43% over Justin Thomas. But this was the key, and this is back to differentiate. So I told you guys, Sun JM on Sundays, the guy, he'll have his little peak. Everybody will forget about him, and then he comes back on Sunday, 600. Lee Westwood, I also put him in. It was a little bit of a price thing, but I just thought he would stay stable. I didn't think he'd go out and do anything amazing. But his putt on 18 got me back up into, I was around 7th or 8th or 9th until he made that birdie putt. So that was huge. He missed he missed on 17, that short par 3 putt. So the Hoffman, same thing, a lot like M. He'll have those peaks and valleys. And then once I saw Fratelli, one thing about Dylan Fratelli, the Nylon Dylon, that guy, he could either be non-existent, but if he's feeling it, he can get nuclear hot. And, he could shoot a 60. It's just the way that guy goes. He can just get a crazy putter. So he was less than 1% on. And then McCumber, again, we saw with the bashed up finger, and I'm just kind of telling you how my mental thought was on picking this team. It wasn't a bunch of, hey, from a stroke gain analysis and all that. It was kind of me just going through and just saying, here are guys that could do something. And so, long story short, not going to pat myself on the back too much, but ended up having a really nice weekend. And just saying, and all this is about is, even when things are going south and not working out, you got to pivot and forget about the GPP and, keep grinding on the showdowns. Okay, enough about the players. Let's talk the Honda Classic. Of course, Sun JM, his only win on tour, his first win on tour, is the defending champion. We are just still at the last tournament in Florida. We're in Palm Beach Gardens. We are at PGA National, the Champions Course. It is a par 70, 7,100 yards. It is a tough course. We've been talking about this because I've been leveraging it for the players, for the Arnold Palmer. A lot of these courses are very similar. I'm on a lot of respects. Of course, you get the Bermuda rough and fairways. You got Bermuda grass on all the ones we've been playing. Bermuda greens, I should say. Right now, the player field, I don't think this is correct, but when I pulled, I got 170 guys. Typically, it should be somewhere around probably 150, 160, but that's what I've got right now. Of course, it's T65 and cuts. So if it stays at 170, it's going to make it very interesting to get 6 to 6 through. The cut line here is, not too far off from the players, +2 to +4. It's a tough track. Winning scores have ranged. I think when Ricky Fowler won, he goes 12 under, 6 under Sun JM last year. And they did get this in last year. Of course, it was played in February. One of the, last full tournaments before that. Of course, you got the infamous Bear Trap, 15, 16, 17. And then thought this was an interesting note. In 2020, only 16 players finished under par. So note to self. Of course, water all over the place comes into play on 13 holes. Got a lot of sand. If you're in the rough, it's tough to hit greens. And then, if you go through past, wind will blow. But, that's all weather dependent. So who knows? They could have perfect conditions, and maybe it rains for 3 days before the tournament, and there's sticking pins, and they tear this course up. But we'll see how that all works out. The one thing I remember, of course, you had Fleetwood, who we thought was going to win his first tournament on U.S. soil, and I think he threw one in the water on the back nine, and it kind of threw him out. We had Mackenzie Hughes, but all I remember is guys that did well here had to really, chip it in from the sand, chip it in around the green. So around the green is a key stat that I'll be plugging in. The greens are about average as in size wise, but there's a ton of slope. I said mucho undulations, but yeah, lots of slopes. You got to be a good putter. So I think that's about it from the things that we need to think about from the course. I threw this on here. I'm trying to always give now a overhead view, and it's not a pretty view, but it is a view just to give you the understanding that, water is everywhere again. Of course, you're seeing here the 15, 16, 17 where the water comes in, but I mean, 18 plays all around the water. Yeah, a lot of sand, a lot of water. We just need guys, again, very similar to the players' perspective, very accurate. Need to hit fairways, need to hit greens, very typical. But I think around the green, it's going to be the long irons that are going to be the guys that break through here. All right, from a scorecard perspective, if you're looking from a showdown perspective, I was looking at this, it's all dependent on how you think, but the easier start is the front nine. You can see this back nine. You got a lot of the tougher holes, it kind of starts you in easy and then breaks you in. So, you can look at that either way. Either you can start guys to get the tough holes out of the way, but I think I would tend to lean. I'd rather them get warmed up, start getting a good vibe before they get into the back nine stretch. It's all, personal preference. But the big thing to pull out here is a ton of par fours. So they gotta do some scoring on the par fours. So par four efficiency. You've got some tough par threes for them, but you only got 2 par fives. So typically where we've been looking at guys that can make eagles and par five scoring, yes, they still got to make their hay on the par fives, but it's just not going to be as dominant as, going to have to do some damage on the par fours too. Past conditions I always mentioned, scoring well to the par is difficult. I kind of looked down through even further past. I'm only showing you 2 years here, but that has stayed true. Depending on how firm the greens are is going to make it harder. You got fast Bermuda greens. The rough length, it says short, but everything that I could see and I remember, if you're in the rough, it's not that easy to get to the green, so you need guys hit the fairway. And you can see the wind. I know it did. It was blowing pretty good, which, I always go and I told you, look at the round highlights. So go on YouTube, watch the previous 2020, 2019, round one, round two, watch the highlights. Get your brain reactivated, get you a better understanding of what the course is doing. But it was pretty windy on Thursday. So moderate, it's saying medium winds. It wasn't crazy. But, calm means, like 0 to 5. All right. So the big thing, let's look at some past winners. Of course, I mentioned Sungjae. Yeah, that outlier, killer Keith Mitchell. As you see, it was just, which can happen. The freak occurrence that the guy goes out, shoots the round of his life or 4 rounds of his life. Guy, did everything well. Typically we think of Killer Keith, great distance off the tee, and then everything else is kind of blah. But the one thing that I noticed that stayed true for all these winners is approach. So if you look at off the tee when they won, you got to look across. So only gained 2.5, gained 2.3, 2.5. So very similar. But what they did very well, and I pulled this up too when JT had his third place here, it was all about gaining on approach. And then around the green, you got to be steady. As I mentioned, you got to gain around the green. But putting, gained a stroke, didn't even gain a stroke. And then when JT won, gained, 2 strokes. So, yeah, you got to be a good putter. Don't get me wrong here. But it's all about approach. That is where I'm leaning. And, of course, you got to hit the fairways. Comp courses I already mentioned that we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at Harbour Town heavily. Bermuda, it's in, Hilton Head, but, it's, I think, a very similar from a distance. It's a par 71, but, I think that's the best comp course we have. We're going to look at what the guys did just recently or in past at TPC Sawgrass. The Wyndham, I think, a little easier course, but from a distance and greens, you can learn a little from that. And then a TPC Southwind are the main comp courses I'll be leveraging when I'm making my picks. And if you want to also look at for the information that you're looking at. And then I already mentioned, the keys to how to win. Of course, it's about approach first. And then the next thing I'm looking at is these two ranges are the most that come up: 150 to 175, and 175 to 200. You got to hit the ball off the tee and get get on the fairways. Good Bermuda putters, scrambling. So a lot around the green stuff. I mean, scrambling is outside of 30 yards, but sand saves and around a green is going to be huge. They got to do well and be efficient on the par 3, par 4s. And I already mentioned only 2 par 5s, but you're still going to need to make your birdies and possibly eagle on those holes. And then pulling this up, recording this about 12:30 on Monday Eastern time, so we do not have any scoring out at this moment, or I'm sorry, pricing. But we do have the field as it sits right now. And like I said, it is a weak field comparative to what we've been seeing. Not too far off. Even Arnold Palmer had a better field, but I think just this thing just got squeezed where it sits. But anyways, what I did is I went and just did a quick model. I'm only looking at the past 12 rounds. There's no filters. Not looking at comp courses. I'm not looking at Bermuda. I'm not looking at anything. This is just recent form over the last 12 rounds against these weights. And so heavily weighted, the approach, as you see, the proximity from 175, 150. I threw this one in there too, 200, but a little less weight. Looking for guys hitting good drives. Again, this is guys that hit fairways or just get it in the first cut, but then hit the green. I like to look at that almost more than fairways gain. I put them both in just to see how that would weight out. Got to be a good ball striking here to see like the Sergio Garcias, Corey Connors, the guys that are elite tee to green. You just got to hope that they do all right when they get on the putting surface. Par 4 scoring is going to be big because there's a ton of them. You got the putter, of course, scrambling and sand saves. Plug that in, and then this is what comes out. So no shocker, Daniel Berger, number 1. James Hahn, that was kind of interesting. Had a great showing at the Waste Management. Tringale's been doing well. You got Gim, who on Sundays, man, just falls apart. I like Doug Gim. Going to be a very talented player. Good for him, but just has tough Sundays right now. He's learning, I guess. The Gooch, who had an amazing Sunday. Jim Furyk, that's kind of interesting. But the guy does those things very well. You got Westwood popping up there again. Harmon, who could be very live. Oh, God, Neesmith, the model always loves and just terrifies me. Russ Henley, I don't know if I threw a bet on him yet or not, but I'm going to be probably on Russ again. As I said, I'm always a week late. You got Sunjay M, who pops up, who should pop up. Keegan Bradley, elite from tee to green. It's just whatever the putter does. Wes Bryant, I mean, again, this is going off his past 12 round. The guy, again, shows up from tee to green, but just not good. So that's it. It was a pretty quick, but I think that was enough to get the brain kind of spinning. Looking still to have an exciting tournament, positive for us. Again, I appreciate if you spent the time with me. If you are new to my show, I would greatly appreciate if you subscribe. If you don't have an account, sign up for an account. It's not that hard. But either way, just like and share this with anybody else. And if you have anything that I can help you out with, hit me up on the Twitter sphere at DSF Golf Guru. I will have 2 more shows coming out. Tomorrow would be the Money Pick Show, where I'll go over one and dones, my favorite bets, your GPP stuff. Get all that to you tomorrow. And then on Wednesday, I'll do my fades, weather, ownership projections, all that stuff. So talk to you guys later. Let's get psyched up for the Honda Classic, which is a little difficult to do, but it's still going to be a lot of fun. And we still got a lot of golf to go. Talk to you guys later.